I found out that my son is not my biological child, but rather my husband and our surrogates. Now everyone is upset with me because I am giving up my parental rights. I can't believe my life has come to this. All I ever do is go out of my way to help others, but on the rare occasions I need help, nobody ever comes through for me. I have been with my husband for almost 10 years, married for 7. We had what I thought was my child by surrogate over 2 years ago. After 4 years of trying to conceive with no success, despite medical interventions, it turned out I am unable to carry a child to term. I had always wanted to be a mom. Devastated is an understatement regarding how I felt when I found out I have a medical condition that would make it nearly impossible to carry a baby to term. It was even more upsetting when I had to get a major surgery to remove uterine growths with the hope to increase fertility, and complications during surgery warranted a partial hysterectomy involving removal of my uterus. Only I still had my ovaries, so we started looking into the cost of a surrogate. It is really expensive. My close friend since college, who'd already had 2 kids of her own, offered to serve as the surrogate for us to cut down on costs. After 2 disappointing IVF sessions that did not result in pregnancy, she became pregnant on the 3rd try and carried a boy to term for us. I was so happy and busy after the birth, between being a mom and returning to work after a 4-week parental leave, so I didn't notice any warning signs. I should have noticed the red flags and warning signs early on, but did not because I was so exhausted from working so much at my stressful job and 2 part-time jobs to cover most of the bills and anticipated medical and legal costs associated with this friend becoming our surrogate. I was the primary breadwinner. My friend and my husband started talking more, and I would sometimes come home from my weekend job to find her already hanging out at our house when my husband was there. I chopped it up as innocuous, and it's good for her to know my husband better since she was in the process of hopefully carrying our child for us. I was grateful to have someone helping us have a child. I also thought it weird that our son has brown eyes when both of us have blue. Then I found out that while this is uncommon, it's possible sometimes due to many genes controlling eye color. Recently, it all came to a head when I took our son to a doctor's appointment and they did a metabolic panel and blood tests, which showed that he had a blood type that is not biologically possible to have with me as his mother. He's B+, I'm a plus, and my husband is O+. Immediately, I started worrying it was the fertility clinic's fault and that they messed up and implanted a wrong embryo. I started lining up lawyer consultations to possibly sue the clinic and looked into having a DNA parentage test done. Test results showed that I'm not the mother, but my husband still is the father. I was heartbroken and angrier than ever. I talked to lawyers about medical malpractice in the fertility clinic we used. Then my husband confessed that he'd slept with my friend, our surrogate, on a few different occasions during our struggle to have her get pregnant with our embryos. This means what I thought was our son, conceived for IVF and carried with a surrogate, isn't my son at all, and was in fact conceived the old-fashioned way, which I can't ever do. Livid and absolutely broken at the same time doesn't even begin to describe how I feel. I have been breaking down into crying spells over and over again about this. He claims he didn't ever think pregnancy could result because he pulled out, and he had always assumed that he was the reason for our earlier struggles to conceive, both before my hysterectomy and during the IVF insemination process with this friend. I felt an immediate triple betrayal from what was supposed to be my husband, my friend, and now knowing my child isn't even really mine. I had such white-hot rage and delirium, I immediately left home and stayed at a hotel for almost a week before asking my parents to let me stay at home for a while. I admit I left our son with him. I am now filing for divorce because he cheated and betrayed me in the worst possible way. I have also cut off my friendship with my friend the surrogate and feel afraid to trust anyone else now. I have seen a divorce lawyer to see about giving up my legal rights to this kid so I don't have to face such betrayal or owe child support. Update: My husband and surrogate admit they were wrong and keep apologizing, but also called me immature and heartless to just give up on my son like that. My parents also say I can't just give up on a kid that I went through so many legal and medical hoops to have. When I told them I refused to stay in a cheating marriage and I'd rather adopt someday with a better, more trustworthy partner, they also told me I was wrong and that maintaining my parental rights isn't much different than if I adopted outright. They said it isn't blood that makes a family. They are all about me divorcing my cheater husband, but keep telling me I'm making a mistake giving up my parental rights. Some of my other friends agree with what I'm doing. A few admitted they weren't big enough to swallow pride and care for an affair baby, or to see daily reminders of my friend/surrogate's betrayal every time I look at her son. I just want a clean break and a fresh start. I'm also looking at relocating several states away. The moving process was grueling, but with each box I packed, I felt a bit lighter. The first few weeks in my new city were challenging. I had to adapt to a new job, make new friends, and adjust to a completely different environment. But for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of hope. I joined a support group for people who had gone through similar betrayals, and it helped immensely to talk to others who understood my pain. One day, I received an unexpected call from my ex-husband. He told me that our son was asking about me and wanted to see me. My initial reaction was anger and confusion. Why now? Why after everything? But a part of me missed my son, even though he wasn't biologically mine. I decided to visit him, if only to give him some closure. The reunion was bittersweet. My son ran to me and hugged me tightly, and for a moment, I felt the overwhelming love that I have for him when he was born. We spent the day together, and I tried to explain to him, in the simplest terms possible, why I had to leave. He was too young to fully understand, but he seemed to accept my reasons. I promised to stay in touch and visit him whenever I could. As time went on, I continued to build a new life for myself. I made new friends, found hobbies that I enjoyed, and even started dating again. It was difficult to trust someone new after everything that had happened, but I knew that I couldn't let my past dictate my future. One of my new friends suggested I see a therapist to help work through my lingering feelings of betrayal and loss. It was one of the best decisions I made. The therapist helped me understand that it was okay to feel hurt and angry, but it was also important to move forward and not let those feelings consume me. In the midst of all this, I started volunteering at a local women's shelter. Helping others who were going through tough times gave me a sense of purpose and fulfillment. It reminded me that despite my own struggles, I had the strength and resilience to make a difference in someone else's life. Years passed, and my relationship with my son evolved. He visited me during holidays and summer breaks, and we talked regularly on the phone. While I still felt pangs of sadness and regret, I also felt grateful for the bond we managed to maintain. He grew up knowing that he had two families who loved him, even if the circumstances were complicated. One day, I received a letter from my former friend, the surrogate. She apologized for her actions and asked for my forgiveness. She explained that she had been going through a difficult time in her marriage and had made a terrible mistake. She was now divorced and trying to rebuild her own life. I didn't know if I could ever fully forgive her, but reading her letter made me realize that holding on to anger was only hurting me. I decided to respond with a letter of my own, expressing my feelings. Anger was only hurting me. I decided to respond with a letter of my own, expressing my feelings and letting her know that while I appreciated her apology, I needed more time to heal. In the end, my journey was about learning to let go and finding peace within myself. I realized that my worth wasn't tied to my ability to carry a child or maintain a perfect marriage. I found strength in my ability to rebuild my life and create a new path for myself. While the scars of my past would always be there, they no longer defined who I was. My story became one of resilience, forgiveness, and self-discovery. I learned that even in the face of immense betrayal and heartbreak, it is possible to find hope and happiness again. And most importantly, I learned that true strength comes from within, and with that strength, I could overcome anything. Years later, I had built a stable and fulfilling life in my new city. My career flourished, and I had a close-knit circle of friends who supported me through thick and thin. I found joy in the small things, like morning walks in the park, cooking new recipes, and exploring the vibrant culture of my new home. The past, while still a part of me, no longer overshadowed my present. One summer, I decided to take a trip abroad, something I had always dreamed of, but never had the chance to do. I chose Italy for its rich history, beautiful landscapes, and delicious food. The trip was everything I hoped it would be and more. I felt a sense of freedom and adventure that I hadn't experienced in a long time. While in Italy, I met a man named Marco. He was kind, funny, and shared many of my interests. We spent a lot of time together during my trip, exploring the countryside, visiting museums, and enjoying long dinners with wine and conversation. As our connection deepened, I realized I was ready to open my heart again. Marco and I decided to continue our relationship long distance, and I visited him whenever I could. Back home, I received news that my ex-husband was going through a difficult time. His relationship with a surrogate had ended, and he was struggling with his own feelings of guilt and regret. Despite everything that had happened, I felt compassion for him. We had once shared a life together, and he was still the father of my son. I reached out to offer my support, and we slowly began to rebuild the civil relationship for the sake of our son. My son, now a teenager, was growing into a wonderful young man. He excelled in school, had a close group of friends, and was passionate about music. We continued to maintain our bond, and he often confided in me about his hopes and dreams. I made a point to be present at his important events, cheering him on from the sidelines. It wasn't always easy, but I was determined to be a part of his life in a meaningful way. As Marco and I grew closer, he expressed his desire to move to my city so we could be together. After much discussion and planning, he relocated, and we began building a life together. It was a new chapter filled with love, trust, and mutual respect. Marco embraced my son as part of our family, and the three of us shared many happy moments together. In time, Marco and I got married. It was a simple, intimate ceremony with close friends and family. My son was my best man, and seeing him stand beside me filled my heart with immense pride and joy. I felt like I had come full circle, from the depths of despair to a place of love and happiness. I also reconnected with my parents. Our relationship had been strained after the divorce, but with time and open communication, we began to heal. They saw how happy I was with Marco and how I had rebuilt my life, and they respected my decisions, even if they didn't fully understand them. Family gatherings became a source of joy rather than tension, and I cherished the time spent with my parents, sharing meals and stories. My former friend, the surrogate, reached out again, this time asking if we could meet in person. I was hesitant but agreed. We met at a quiet cafe, and she looked genuinely remorseful. She apologized once more and explained how her actions had stemmed from her own unresolved issues and insecurities. She had sought therapy and was working on becoming a better person. I listened, and while I couldn't forget the pain she had caused, I found it within myself to forgive her. It was a step toward healing for both of us. As the years passed, I continued to grow and evolve. I pursued new hobbies, traveled to new places, and embraced the beauty of each day. My relationship with Marco deepened, and we supported each other through life's ups and downs. My son went off to college, pursuing his passion for music, and I couldn't have been prouder of the young man he had become. Looking back, I realized that my journey had made me stronger, more resilient, and more compassionate. I had faced immense challenges and heartbreak, but I had also found love, joy, and fulfillment. My story was one of transformation, proving that even in the darkest moments, there is always a glimmer of hope. And with that hope, we can create a beautiful, meaningful life. Several years into my new life, I found myself reflecting on how far I had come. My relationship with Marco continued to flourish, and we had established a comfortable routine together. Our home was filled with warmth and laughter, and we often hosted gatherings for friends and family. It was a place where love and happiness thrived. One day, while browsing through old photographs, I came across pictures of my son from his early years. It was a bittersweet moment, as I remembered the struggles and the pain of those times. But as I looked at the images, I also saw how much he had grown and achieved. I was filled with pride and a deep sense of fulfillment. My son was now a young adult, living in a city a few hours away, pursuing his dream career in music. He had become a talented musician and had even started composing his own pieces. We stayed in touch regularly, and I cherished our conversations and visits. Watching him chase his dreams and succeed was one of the greatest joys of my life. Marco and I began discussing the idea of starting a family of our own. We had both been through significant life changes and challenges, and we felt ready to take this step together. We explored various options, including adoption and surrogacy, and found ourselves excited about the possibilities. In the midst of this, I also wanted to give back to the community. I became involved in local charitable organizations, focusing on causes related to children and families. I found immense satisfaction in helping others and making a positive impact in their lives. It was a way for me to channel my experiences and give hope to those facing difficulties. One evening, while attending a charity event, I met a young woman named Lily who was an aspiring artist. She reminded me of myself when I was younger, full of dreams and determination. We struck up a conversation and quickly became friends. I was impressed by her talent and passion, and I decided to mentor her, offering guidance and support as she navigated her own journey. As the years passed, Marco and I decided to adopt a child. The process was both exciting and challenging, but we were committed to providing a loving home. When we were finally matched with a newborn baby girl, our hearts were overflowing with joy. We named her Emma and welcomed her into our family with open arms. Becoming parents to Emma was a transformative experience. She brought a new level of joy and purpose into our lives. Marco and I were dedicated to giving her the best possible start and ensuring that she felt loved and cherished every day. Our family grew even stronger, and we were grateful for the opportunity to nurture and guide her. Throughout all these changes, my relationship with my son remained strong. He visited us regularly, and we continued to support each other through life's ups and downs. It was clear that despite the challenges of our past, we had built a bond that was unbreakable. Looking back on my journey, I realized that life had a way of bringing unexpected twists and turns. Despite the heartache and betrayal, I have found love, rebuilt my life, and created a new family. My experiences had taught me resilience, forgiveness, and the importance of embracing the present. As I watched my children grow and thrive, I felt a deep sense of contentment. Life had not always been easy, but it had led me to a place of happiness and fulfillment. I was grateful for the support of my friends, the love of my family, and the chance to create a life filled with meaning and purpose. In the end, I learned that true happiness comes from within and from the connections we make with others. By embracing change, finding joy in the present, and nurturing the relationships that matter most, we can create a life that is rich and rewarding. My story was a testament